The Life of John Thompson, a Fugitive Slave, containing his history of 25 years in bondage and his providential escape, written by himself. John Thompson was born into slavery on a Maryland plantation in 1812, and he was one of 7 children. Among his first memories was the sale of his oldest sister. During his boyhood, Thompson learned to read with the aid of his master's nephew, and received the relative privilege of working as a body servant for his young master, John Wayga. Soon after the death of Wayga's mother, the plantation's owner, in 1822, the Thompson family was sold to another Maryland planter. As a teenager and a young man, Thompson was hired out to a succession of planters, the majority of whom were abusive, callous, and indifferent to the welfare of their slaves. Toiling as an agricultural field hand, Thompson witnessed much horrific treatment, but he also recalls a number of slaves, himself among them, who resisted, sometimes violently, the cruelties inflicted on them. Hearing that his master planned to move to Mississippi, Thompson resolved to escape. Heading north with a friend, he eluded tracking dogs and slave catchers with the help of sympathetic free blacks before reaching Philadelphia. But he later earned a captain's favor and proved himself an able seaman. Thompson remained at sea for 2 years before returning to his family. He then moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, where his narrative was published in 1856, and he then died in 1860. Little is known about John Thompson outside of the information in his autobiography. Thompson was born into slavery on the Wayga plantation in Maryland in 1812, and the first act of slavery that recalls other than deprivations includes the meager food and clothing allowances given to slaves, and how mothers were compelled to leave their infants to provide for themselves. Upon the death of Mistress Wayga and the subsequent division of property, Thompson's family is bought by Mr. George Thomas. Thompson also includes the stories of the slaves who escaped or offer other forms of resistance. In Thomas's plantation, Thompson is hired out to one of his brothers, who attempts to sell Thompson upon discovering that he had secretly learned to read and write. He subsequently lent from master to master. Resolving to escape, rather than move further south, Thompson is almost foiled when another slave reveals his plans. He eventually heads north with a friend, and they cover almost 40 miles during their first day of travel by stealing 2 horses and use grapevines for bridles. After they reach Philadelphia, Thompson regains faith and marries. Whilst in the north, and after several slaves nearby were arrested and taken to the south, however, Thompson spends 2 years at sea, traveling all over the world. He ends his narrative with a lengthy discussion of his religion's growth aboard the vessel. More than 40 escapees from slavery had seen their life accounts break into print, since William Grimes pioneered the slave narratives in 1825 in New York. For this reason, Thompson probably knew that pundits reviewers, and a growing number of readers in the North had come to rely on the first-hand accounts of former slaves for honest revelations about the realities of chattel slavery. John Thompson is believed to have had contact with other slave narratives, as he adopted many of the slave narratives' conventions and motifs in his life. "I was born in Maryland" echoes the first sentence of the narratives of Douglas, Wells Brown, and Pennington, involving specifically the "I was born" construction that by 1856 had become a hallmark of the genre. Thompson's biography is deliberately vague in details, as he selectively documents emerges when he mentions his sister, who preceded him as a fugitive to the north. Most of what Thompson reveals about his sister is not an unusual theme in the pre-Civil War slave narratives. Thompson's lengthy narrative focuses on the damage slavery did to his family, the violence that seared the memories of his youth, and the ways black people individually and collectively tried to resist the injustices they were subjected to. Thompson recounts his exposure to milder and cruder forms of bondage under a succession of Maryland slaveholders who hired him for animal stints, field work, through his late teens and 20s. John was the only fugitive slave narrator to report a whaling voyage. He was also the first African-American autobiographer to craft from seafaring experience and an allegorical sermon. Thompson's life is therefore a kind of African-American Pilgrim's Progress, as well as narrative of a struggle with escape from and triumph over American slavery. In this sense, Thompson designs his autobiography so that the turning point in his spiritual life proves to be equally pivotal in his transition from a slave to free man. The North American Antebellum slave narratives. Thanks for watching.